They don't storm out or scream. They just stop showing up emotionally. They begin to exist beside you instead of with you. Like a candle still burning, but no longer offering warmth. And the thing about emotional absence? It's quiet. So quiet that it makes you question if you're imagining things. You might hear yourself saying, "They're just tired. It's a stressful time. We're just in a slump." But deep down, you already know, this isn't about life stress. It's about a shift in their heart. And sometimes silence says what words never will. Let's be honest. It's terrifying to admit someone's love may be fading. Because the moment you see it clearly, you have to face it. And facing it means asking yourself a painful question. Do I stay in hope, or do I accept that they've already gone, emotionally? It's a question without easy answers. But the clarity starts here, with paying attention to these subtle but powerful signs. Sign 3. They no longer share their inner world with you. In the early days of love, it all feels wide open. You share dreams, fears, funny moments, late-night thoughts. They come to you when something good happens, and even more when something bad does. But now, they keep things to themselves. You hear about their life through others. You find out about a tough day or a big decision after it's already happened. You feel like an outsider in the life you once shared. It's not always out of malice. Sometimes people withdraw because they no longer feel safe. Or they've already emotionally detached and don't want to risk deeper connection. Or they're preparing themselves, and you, for a goodbye they haven't yet said out loud. This is one of the most painful signs. Because it makes you realize you're not just missing their attention, you're missing their trust. And without emotional intimacy, love becomes an echo of what it used to be. You might find yourself begging in soft ways. Talk to me. Let me in. But if someone has already locked the door of their heart, all the knocking in the world won't matter. At some point you must ask, am I talking to someone who still wants to be heard? Sign 4. They're irritated by things they once found endearing. This one often sneaks in unnoticed. The things they used to laugh about, the little quirks, habits, odd routines, are now the things that seem to get under their skin. The way you hum while cooking. How you talk with your hands. The stories you've told 100 times before. Now, these things are met with sighs, eye rolls, sharp responses. Or worse, nothing at all. You feel like walking on eggshells in your own home. And the worst part? You start changing yourself, bit by bit, just to avoid their annoyance. That's the kind of self-erasure that happens when love fades. Not all at once, but slowly, painfully, quietly. Because when someone loves you, even your flaws are familiar. When they're pulling away, those same flaws become excuses to disconnect. They may not even realize they're doing it. But you feel it, every time you shrink a little more, trying to keep the peace that used to come so naturally. And it raises a heartbreaking truth. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference masked as irritation. Sign 5. They avoid the future with you. Plans become vague. Conversations about the future grow shorter, or disappear entirely. Where once you dreamed together, vacations, birthdays, even growing old side by side, now there's hesitation. You ask, what should we do for the holidays? And they shrug. You mention moving, or a trip you wanted to take. And they deflect. There's a noticeable absence of excitement for us. It's all me and you, but not we. That's often the final quiet sign. Because someone who no longer sees a future with you has already mentally stepped out of the story. They're just waiting for the moment to put down the book and walk away. And that's what hurts the most, not the leaving, but the long goodbye you had to witness in silence. When all these signs begin to surface, it doesn't always mean they've stopped loving you. Sometimes it means love is still there, but buried under resentment, exhaustion, fear, or change. Sometimes it's salvageable. Sometimes it's not. But in every case, these signs are not here to punish you. They're here to wake you up. Because you deserve a love that stays curious about you. That speaks, even when it's hard. That chooses you in the quiet, not just the chaos. The next part of this journey will explore why people emotionally withdraw, and how to know whether to hold on, or begin to let go. Sometimes, the signs of emotional withdrawal aren't about you. They're about them. Their battles. Their wounds. Their fears they've never spoken aloud. You may find yourself saying, "But nothing happened. We didn't fight. There was no betrayal. Why are they pulling away?" Because often, emotional disconnection doesn't begin with a dramatic moment. It begins with internal unraveling, quiet, unseen. They may be going through something they don't know how to talk about. They might feel lost in themselves, disconnected from their purpose, or afraid of failing, not just in love, but in life. And when people feel lost inside, they stop reaching out. Not because they don't care, but because they no longer know how to connect. There's something deeply human about this. Think about it. When you've gone through depression, grief, or shame, didn't you also pull away a little? Didn't you find it hard to be fully present, even with the people you loved? That's what we forget in these moments. We take emotional distance as rejection. But sometimes, it's just someone's attempt to survive. They're hurting. And not everyone knows how to hurt and love at the same time. That doesn't excuse coldness. But it helps us meet it with compassion. You might still feel heartbroken. But that heartbreak doesn't have to turn into bitterness. It can become understanding. And that understanding? It can shape how you respond, with grace, not desperation. And yet, there is another possibility. One that is harder to face. One we often avoid until it's too late. Sometimes, people pull away because they've already made the decision, in their heart. Maybe they haven't said it aloud. Maybe they don't even fully understand it themselves. But the signs are there. They no longer try. They avoid hard conversations. They offer the bare minimum and call it effort. They stop choosing you in small, daily ways. And the worst part? They may still say they love you, but their actions whisper something else entirely. That's the moment when you must stop listening to their words and start listening to your own heart. It's painful. You replay memories. You look for the turning point. You wonder what you did wrong. You think, maybe if I just hold on longer. But let's pause right there. What if this isn't about holding on tighter? What if it's about holding on to yourself? You can love someone deeply and still realize that love has changed. You can honor the good times without sacrificing your self-worth in the present. You don't have to beg for the love you once had. You can honor what it was and honor who you are now. That's not giving up. That's growing up. So what now? What do you do when you recognize the signs, but you're not ready to walk away? When your heart still wants to try, even if their heart seems uncertain? You start with presence. You ask the hard questions. You open the door, not with blame, but with honesty. You say, "I've been feeling us drift. It scares me. I miss the way we used to talk. I miss feeling close. I don't want to pretend everything is fine when it's not." And then, you listen. Not for what you want to hear, but for what's really there. Because sometimes there's still hope. Sometimes, that conversation brings tears, connection, and the beginning of a new chapter. But other times, it reveals a truth you weren't ready to face. That they're no longer willing. No longer choosing you. No longer holding the same vision for the future. And that's when love asks you to do something brave. To stop clinging to the memory of what was, and begin choosing what is. Remember this. Not all emotional distance means the end. But it always means something has changed. If both hearts are willing, change can be beautiful. It can lead to renewal. But if only one heart is trying, that's not a relationship. That's survival. And you were made for more than survival. You were made for connection that fills, not connection that drains. Sometimes the hardest part isn't seeing the signs. It's understanding why they're happening. What causes someone who once looked at you with warmth to now meet your gaze with distance? Why does love, which once felt unshakable, begin to dissolve? Not in a storm, but in slow, silent waves? The truth is rarely simple. But there are patterns. And when we see them clearly, we gain the power not just to respond, but to heal with wisdom instead of regret. Let's take a quiet, honest walk through some of the most common reasons people emotionally disconnect, and how to tell when it's about their inner world, or a quiet exit from yours. Reason 1: they're emotionally exhausted, not emotionally gone. Love asks us to show up fully, again and again. But life doesn't always leave us with much to give. Sometimes the one you love is carrying silent burdens. A job that's crushing their spirit. A sense of failure they've never voiced. Childhood wounds they've hidden beneath strength. Or the relentless pressure of pretending they're okay. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to hold themselves together. And in doing so, they stop reaching. They stop talking. They stop being present. It's easy to take it personally. But sometimes, their distance isn't about a lack of love. It's about a lack of capacity. They're drowning, and can't even whisper for help. In those moments, the most powerful thing you can ask isn't, "Why don't you love me like before?" But rather, "What pain are you carrying that I haven't seen?" Because empathy, true empathy, isn't just listening when it's easy. It's leaning in, even when you feel pushed away. But here's the line: if they stay behind their wall too long, refuse to let you in, and let you shoulder the entire relationship alone, then it's not just exhaustion anymore. It's a choice. Reason 2: they've outgrown the relationship, but don't know how to say it. This is perhaps the hardest truth of all. Sometimes people stop loving you the way they once did. Not because something went wrong, but because they've changed. They may feel unfulfilled, misaligned, confused about what they want in life, or just quietly disconnected from the person they used to be when they first loved you. And instead of facing that pain head on, they retreat. Not to spare you, but to delay the conversation they're afraid to have. They stay, but only halfway. They offer just enough to avoid the guilt of leaving, but never enough to give you the love you deserve. This is emotional limbo. And it's a kind of cruelty, even if it's unintentional. Because when someone stops choosing you fully, but doesn't let you go, you're left walking in circles, wondering what changed. That confusion will drain you. Until, one day, you stop asking what you did wrong, and begin asking why they couldn't simply tell you the truth. Sometimes, they're afraid of hurting you. But other times, they're afraid of facing their own reflection. Reason 3: they don't know how to love deeply, only excitedly. Some people mistake infatuation for love. They thrive in the chase, the thrill, the newness. But once the honeymoon fades, and the deep, daily work of love begins, they withdraw. They don't know how to love someone through monotony. They only know how to love when it's exciting, effortless, and grand. So when life gets real, when bills pile up, when silence replaces spark, when intimacy becomes more about presence than passion, they quietly pull away. It's not because you did anything wrong. It's because they never learn how to stay when love gets still. These are the ones who may come back, again and again, whenever they miss you, but never when you need them. Because they don't understand that real love isn't a firework. It's a steady flame. And if you're someone who offers steady love to someone addicted to the high, you will always feel like you're not enough, when in truth, you're just too real for their fantasy. Reason 4: they're comparing you to a version of you that no longer exists. This one stings. Over time, we change. We evolve. We soften in some ways, harden in others. And so do our partners. But some people don't fall out of love with who you are now. They fall out of love with the memory of who you used to be. The version of you that laughed more. That had more energy. That didn't carry the weight of family, health, money, aging. They hold you hostage to a version of yourself that life has long since shaped into something different. And when you don't match the ideal they remember, they begin to withdraw. Not because you failed them, but because they couldn't evolve with you. Love requires growing alongside someone. But if they freeze their love in the past, they'll never truly hold you in the present. And that's not your fault. You are allowed to grow, to shift, to become. You don't know anyone your younger self. Especially not someone unwilling to love the you who exists now. Reason 5, they've already checked out, but haven't found the courage to leave. This is the one that keeps people up at night. Because deep down, they already know. They sense the goodbye in every interaction. They feel it in the emotional absence, the lifeless touch, the distracted eyes. But no one has said it yet. So the relationship continues in limbo, like a house no one lives in anymore, but hasn't yet been sold. They haven't left because they feel guilty. They're afraid of being alone. They don't want to hurt you. Or they're waiting for you to say it first. And you? You feel like a ghost haunting a love that once felt alive. This kind of disconnection is slow, but devastating. Because every day they stay, you keep hoping. And every day they stay without trying, you hurt a little more. But here's the truth. If they've already emotionally left, you are not abandoning them by choosing yourself. You are simply doing what they couldn't. This is where clarity becomes your strength. Ask yourself, are they just struggling? Or have they quietly stopped choosing me? Is this salvageable? Or am I the only one holding the thread? Because once you know what's real, you stop spinning in confusion. You stop trying to prove your worth to someone who's already decided to look away. And that's where healing begins. Not in saving the relationship, but in saving yourself from staying where you're no longer seen. So what do you do when you've seen the signs, understood the reasons, and your heart still aches from the truth you didn't want to face? They've pulled away. And somewhere in your soul, you know they may never fully return. The hardest part of love is not losing someone, it's losing them while they're still right in front of you. But this is where your healing begins. Not with their choices, but with your own. Because when someone no longer loves you, you still have one unshakable power. The power to love yourself enough to choose peace. First, stop trying to recreate what once was. It's human to rewind the past, to replay the early days, to crave the laughter, the closeness, the magic. But here's a quiet truth few speak aloud. You cannot rebuild something if only one person is still holding the blueprint. Love doesn't return through begging, fixing, or shrinking yourself. If it returns through mutual choice, mutual growth, mutual commitment. If you're the only one still trying, you're not in a relationship. You're in mourning. Mourning a love that's already let go of you. So allow yourself to grieve. Let the tears fall. Let the dreams go. Because the sooner you stop clinging to what was, the sooner you make room for what could be. Second, return home to yourself. When love fades, it's easy to forget who you are without them. You start measuring your worth through their eyes. You silence your needs just to keep the peace. You dim your light hoping it might warm their heart again. But you were someone before this relationship. You are someone still. Your softness. Your strength. Your laughter. Your soul. They belong to you, not to someone who can no longer see their value. So begin the gentle return. Go back to the music you loved. The books that made you feel. The dreams you once buried. The friends who remind you you're still alive. Don't wait for someone to love you to feel lovable again. Be the one who shows up for yourself, first, always. That's not selfish. That's sacred. Third, speak the truth you've been avoiding. Whether it's to them or to yourself, speak it. The truth that says, I see what's happening. I can no longer pretend this feels like love. I deserve to be met, not just tolerated. This doesn't mean yelling. It doesn't mean accusing. It means standing in your truth, even if your voice trembles. Sometimes the most powerful closure isn't from the other person. It's from the part of you that finally says, I will no longer abandon myself just to feel chosen by someone else. You may not get the apology you wanted, or the answers you hoped for, but you will get peace. And peace is worth everything. Fourth, don't confuse their silence with your unworthiness. When someone pulls away, it can feel personal. As if their distance means you failed. You weren't enough. You didn't matter. But here's what age and experience have taught us. People withdraw for many reasons. And most of them have more to do with them than with you. Their inability to love you the way you need? That's not a reflection of your value. Their emotional absence? Not a verdict on your worthiness. Their silence? Not a measure of how much you deserve to be cherished. You are still worthy. Still radiant. Still deserving of a love that stays. Please don't let one person's disconnection define your ability to be deeply, wildly loved by another. Or by yourself. Fifth, open the door to what's next. Letting go doesn't always mean goodbye. But it does mean release. Releasing the pressure. The pretending. The painful hope that things will return to a place they're no longer meant to be. And in that release, you begin to breathe again. You begin to see possibilities again. Not necessarily new love, not right away. But a new version of you. Stronger. Wiser. Softer, even in your sorrow. Because the end of love is not the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of the most honest chapter yet. Where you stop waiting for someone else to love you. And start falling back in love with your own soul. So if you've been wondering whether the distance you feel is real, if you've been hurting in silence, carrying a relationship on your back, please know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. And you are not unworthy of the deep, steady love you've always longed for. Sometimes, love leaves quietly. But healing can arrive even quieter. In the stillness of finally choosing yourself. And that choice? That's where everything begins again.